This podcast is sponsored by Bigger Brains, online training that won't bore you to tears. Expand the minds of your workforce at getbiggerbrains.com.
Welcome to Permission to Speak, the video blog and podcast that loiters at the intersection of leaders who want their people to speak up, technology that facilitates connections, and results that serve our higher purpose. Now, here's your host, Kelly Vandever.
Welcome to the podcast. My name is Kelly Vandever, and our special guest today is David Marquet. Welcome, David.
Hi. Welcome, everyone, to the podcast today.
Thanks, David. Let me give you a little background about David. David graduated top of his class at the U.S. Naval Academy and had a distinguished 28-year career in the Navy, including being the commanding officer of the nuclear submarine, the USS Santa Fe. I'm going to let him tell you a little more about that story in a moment, but let's just suffice it to say he won a lot of awards, and the officers and enlisted personnel he led went on to more increased responsibility than any other submarine crew, including 10 subsequent submarine captains. Stephen R. Covey was so impressed with David that he wrote about him in the book The Eighth Habit. David captured his own story in the book Turn the Ship Around, a true story of turning followers into leaders. Fortune magazine called the book the best how-to manual anywhere for managers on delegating, training, and driving flawless execution. USA Today listed it as one of the top 12 business books of all time. And after retiring from the Navy in 2009, David has helped other leaders turn around their organizations by guiding them to build environments where people contribute and feel valued, where everyone is a leader. What a great mission to have. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Yeah, thanks. And, you don't have to turn it around. I mean, if you're doing great, keep going in the same direction. And we'll help you move in the same direction. You
Great
don't have
point.
to be all screwed up. If you want. I want to make sure, I just want to get that out there right at the beginning.
Excellent. Great point. Thank you, David. Well, as you know, we ask our interviewees a couple of quirky questions to get us started and learn a little more about you as a person. So, the first question, what actor would you want to play you on television or in a movie?
Yeah. So I had a chance to do a session with NBC Universal, and one of their talents is Matt Damon, and he'd be the guy I'd want to play me because I'm from the Boston area, so is he. I think he'd do a pretty good job.
He's an amazing actor. Now, knowing a little more about your story, and our listeners will in a moment too, but has there been any discussions about making your story into a movie?
Not like nothing's too serious yet, but yeah, maybe we'll see.
That would be, I think
it would be ironic because we always used to say that it takes bad leadership to make a good movie, and good leadership would make a bad movie. Because what happens in movies is you got to have these dramatic, episodes. You got to have these near disasters. And of course, good leadership is about, getting rid of all that drama and just having a team that, anticipates and avoids those catastrophes, not like goes into the catastrophe and then somehow saves ourselves. So I'm not sure it would make a good movie, but we decided to make it a movie.
Matt
Damon, you're my man.
Excellent. Okay. And then my second quirky question is, what is your favorite possession?
I got a snarky answer for that.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to say it's my trash can because, I just love getting rid of stuff and clearing out and having, empty space. And the trash is like magic. You put it on your curb. Guys come by. I love my trash man. I talk to them whenever whenever I'm home. I rush out there, and then it goes and then it disappears. It's a magical thing that happens in America, and I love my trash can.
Well, I can see an uncluttered office behind you, so that.
Oh yeah, I should have pushed everything off to the side. so you would see that I didn't have anything.
Oh, that's too funny. That's
Yeah.
too funny. All righty. So now let's get into the exciting stuff. Tell us your story. What happened in your life to that you got to a place where you cared that employees had a voice and speaking up?
So my story was, it wasn't so much that I cared that they spoke up, it was that my life depended on them speaking up. And my story was, I came up through the Navy with this desire to be a submarine captain, and I was doing all the right things, and I was making it through the gates, and I finally got selected to be the captain on one submarine. And I trained for a year, even though I was a submarine officer. That wasn't enough. The Navy takes you out. They put you through a very robust training program. So I trained for a year. I could draw the pipes, the pumps, the electrical systems. I read all the problems the ship had and the dossiers of the guys on board. And I was literally, the smartest person on the planet after 12 months. All I had to do, a full-time job, study that submarine. 2 weeks to go. They say, nah, you're going to go to a different ship. Because what had happened was there was another submarine. The ship I was supposed to go to was out in Pearl Harbor, and there was another submarine, the USS Santa Fe. And the Santa Fe was the Enron of submarines. The Santa Fe was a submarine that we laughed at and we giggled at. And during that 12 months of schooling, we said, oh, those poor guys in the Santa Fe. And because submarine captains are there for a kind of a strict 3-year rotation, at the 2-year point, we picked the guy. Then it was all guys. Now we have women on submarines. But so they, at 2-year point, they picked a person who goes to school for a year so they can become the submarine captain. The guy on the Santa Fe was supposed to be there for another year. But he quit early. He didn't get fired, but he just quit. And the Navy said, well, we can't have a submarine without a captain. So Marquet, Santa Fe. And the problem was, that was scary because the Santa Fe was at the bottom of the fleet in performance and the bottom of the fleet in terms of retention and morale. But the real problem for me was it was a different kind of ship. And so all the equipment on board was different. And when I walked on board for the very first time, it was just like, whoa, what is all? I mean, I knew it was going to be different, but I was like, wow. Because on the Olympia, I would know what every button did. On Santa Fe, I didn't know. And so a couple things happened to me. Basically, I had just earthquake in my brain is the best way to explain it, where my mindset about everything about what I thought was leadership, giving clear orders, knowing all the answers, all that was just blown up. And I ended up in a place where I came to the realization that the problem wasn't me giving good orders. The problem was that I was the one giving orders. And that in any environment where the leader gives orders, there's going to be this tendency to follow them. We want to say, look, guys, if you don't agree, speak up. If you think I'm wrong, speak up. And, 99% of the time, they don't speak up.
Right, right.
And so the solution is to stop giving orders. And so we called it intent-based leadership. And what happened is, I gave this order, which you couldn't do on the submarine. It wasn't a big deal, but it was basically like, hey, guys, shift into 5th gear, but there were only 4 gears. But the officer ordered it anyway, and then it came to light, hey, we couldn't do this. It was like, and then that's when this earthquake happened, and I said, okay, how about this? I stopped giving you guys orders. Well, no one had seen what that looks like. No one knew what that was going to look like. And my submarine was a depressing place to be because I was getting beat up because they weren't doing very well, and they've been told over and over again, you guys are the worst, and they started to believe it. And so when they came to work, there was this mindset, I just got to not screw up, not make a mistake, and that creates this bias towards inactivity, this bias towards passivity and avoiding taking action. And now I just made a deal with my guys, I'm not going to give them any orders. So there were some awkward times where not a whole lot happened. But pretty soon we said, you know what? Just say I intend to. I intend to submerge the ship. I intend to start up the reactor. I intend to load a torpedo. Whatever it is. And then what happens is they actually gain psychological control, and they start coming out doing this. And it was just like this amazing thing because this cascaded down through the ship. And then pretty soon the chiefs were saying it to the officers who would say it to me. And then the junior guys would say it to the chiefs, who said it to the officers, said it to me. And, we'll talk about this. We can talk about this. But in order to say, I intend to your boss, two things. One, you got to take psychological ownership for it.
Right.
And that results in this proactive engagement, this pushing of things upward as opposed to trying to pull things up. And the second thing that happens is for you to say that, it creates the opportunity for these conversations so that you're as a leader, you can hear what your people are thinking, right? Normally we say, look, when you demonstrate maturity, I'll give you increased authority, increased permission rights. But if I never give you increased permission rights, it's really hard to assess someone's maturity, or we call it technical capability and organizational clarity. So what we say is, you got to, in a leaders trust first, we got to give people authority first in a small way. I call it suck air through taste. They're like, okay, you get to choose. And then we see what happens. How do they handle it? And because we're only doing it in small ways, we don't risk the whole organization. But what happens is people, they love that. So instead of saying, my boss micromanages me, they say, my boss trusts me.
Right.
And I'm the master of my domain. I'm in charge of this, and I'm actually in charge of it, not just like, a rubber stamp to get permission.
Right.
And so these amazing things happen. And, the short story is we turned the ship around and, we got the highest grades that the Navy had records for operating the submarine 12 months later. And we went from the bottom of the fleet to the top of the fleet. We went from 3 guys out of 35 re-enlisting to 35 out of 35. But that was cool, but that wasn't the story. And that wasn't the reason I wrote the book. The story is what happened over the next 10 years when officer after officer after officer after officer was promoted and selected to become a submarine captain. We ended up with 10, as you said, and all these senior enlisted guys. And that 10 is a highly disproportionate number.
That's huge. Having been in the Navy, I know a little bit, but
right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's only 14 officers generally in the wardroom at any one time. So this took 10 years to happen. Because I think, if you could come from, we call it know all, tell all mindset. You're a leader, you know all the answers, you give all the orders. It's a know all, tell all. You can do that and have a temporary impact on an organization, turn it around. But what happens when you leave is,
right.
So what happens on the Santa Fe was the guys kept sailing along, and the guys and the people on board kept doing well. This is what leadership is. Leadership is measured the day you leave. Accomplishment and achievement is measured while you're there, right?
Wow.
Leadership is what your people do when you're not there. How well were you able to get them to believe in themselves? So
that's beautiful. That was
a cool story, and that was the story I wanted to tell. And we didn't know it. We didn't know it at the time. All we knew is that our lives depended on me stopping giving orders. That's what we call motivation.
So that wasn't necessarily the way you led before you got to the Santa Fe.
Oh my God, no.
No choice.
Oh my God, no. In fact, I have a book, which I don't have near me. I think I threw it out now. Now I have a book, which was my Naval Academy leadership book, and my Naval Academy, and I open it up when I do seminars and keynotes, and I actually show it, and I say, look, and in it, it says, leadership is directing. Here's what it says. Leadership is directing the thoughts, plans, and actions of others so as to obtain and command their obedience, their confidence, and their respect. This is exactly what it said. And so for like 17 years, I believed this. But you think about it, it's like, can you actually like direct the thoughts of people? Like, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
Like, if you're Obi-Wan Kenobi and then you say, these are not the droids you're looking for, maybe. but none of you guys are out there Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we can't actually do that. But this is what we're trying to do. It's crazy. But I believed in that. Like the more I was giving, I thought giving orders is good. Giving better orders is better. Giving really better orders is the top as you can get. But now I think actually creating a system where you don't have to give orders, that's where you want to get to.
That's beautiful.
But I never realized there was a door. There was a trap door that went up here. Anyway, yeah, no, I was a mess. But I was getting promoted in the Navy because I was really good at doing what I was told and basically telling people what to do.
So what was it like then when you had to we were forced to make this decision? Your life depended on it. How did that go against everything you've been doing up to that 17 years?
Yeah, so it was scary. It was scary because first of all, I went against my instinct. So if I got tired or hungry or stressed out, my instinct would just be go, just drive here, just do this. How hard is that? My instinct would always take me back into that old way of behaving. And then I'd be sad, and I would tell my guys, that's not how I want to be. It's not how I want to be as a leader. And they were like, it's okay. They were incredibly forgiving because we talked about it, and they knew what I was trying to do. But this is not a decision you just make once and you're done with it. It's like, oh, today I decided to quit smoking. Good, I'm done. Every single day when I walked down to the control room, I had to make a decision. Can I not tell them what to do? And even when it's like in emergencies and we think we got to tell people what to do, we were able to train so that even in emergencies, they were just telling me, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And it was awesome. It was even, and the difference in behavior and performance goes up in that situation. It's even bigger than normal. So
now, tell me a little more about that, because most of the time when we talk in a theoretical perspective, or when people are in organizations where safety is a big issue or emergencies come up, they say you have to, that command and control, that directive stuff is really important then. So tell me a little more about that.
That's wrong. Here's why. I'm going to go off camera and grab a piece of paper for a second.
Okay.
Paper. Okay, here's why. So what we're trying to do is give people control. So in other words, instead of them waiting for me to say, take that fire hose down there, use that axe to chop through that wall, they're coming to me saying, hey, we intend to move this fire hose to the engine room, upper level. Hey, we're going to access this. And like it's all being pushed up to the coordinator as opposed to the coordinator having to tell people. You can imagine that the faster something is moving, the more chaotic it is.
Right.
The more important it is to have 100 people out there seeing what's going on and making decisions about what needs to happen than if it's just a sort of very simple, day-to-day operations. Right. The problem is we generally haven't thought about those situations and we're not trained for them. So when those happen, we get thrown into chaos. So what we say is, there's a connection between giving control this way. I'm not sure how well you can say it.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Yes, we're giving control this way and what we call competence and clarity this way. And we need to operate in this domain. So in other words, if we want to give more control, we need people who have higher levels of competence and clarity. That makes sense. Everyone's got that. So what happens in an emergency is it's not the fact that it's an emergency that causes people to take control. It's the fact that we haven't planned for the emergency. And so therefore we're throwing people into a situation where they have low levels of competence. The world around us changed, so we have a low level of competence, and because we have a low level of competence, that drives us this way, and that requires the leader to take more control. Up here, more empowered, more control, more distributed decision making. Down here, the leader's making all the decisions. So it's the reason is it happens in emergency. So we say, oh, it's because it's an emergency that we got to go back and take control, but that's not why. The reason is because we're driving the team into a situation where they don't have a lot of competence or clarity, which is like understanding what we're trying to achieve here. That's why we end up seeing a lot of leaders do that. But we found on the submarine, and if you look at the way special ops forces teams work, they're on some of the most, and we work with these guys on the submarine, is like, you're in very chaotic situations where things are happening all over the place. There's no time for someone to give a bunch of orders. And so you can imagine that as long as the team is thinking about it and that person over there knows what they're supposed to do without being told, it's great. I have a picture where there's a helicopter hovering over the submarine and we're bringing this team on. And I say, hey, imagine like that. You can't talk, like the helicopter makes so much noise. You can't give orders even if you wanted to. Everyone just needs to know exactly what they're supposed to do without being told.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting me do that rant.
No, I appreciate that. Very good. So let's see, where were we? we kind of got off on that tangent a little bit, but
yeah, you asked me, well, what about leaders who say, when you in an emergency, right, I got to take control back.
Right, but you were also had to do this transition because you were in a situation you had to rely on the folks that reported to you.
Right.
You didn't have that. One thing that occurred to me as you were speaking, you said your instinct was to go back to the way you've been doing things.
When you're under stress, right? When you're under stress, we know that the way the brain works is it always pushes you back into your reptile brain,
right?
Which is your self-survival. It's fight, flight, or freeze. So what happens is when you're under stress, look. People say, are leaders born or made? Okay, leaders are not only not born, they're born anti-leaders. Okay, because humans, like all mammals, are designed for control. You're designed to climb the top of the hierarchy. Your body will react positively if you climb up the hierarchy. You will be healthier. Your blood will show less signs of stress, and you'll live longer. And so human, like your body is designed to be in control. You want to be in control. So when we say you got to give control to be a leader, that's actually going against how you've been designed. So it feels odd. So we have these little games that we play where we say, well, you can train yourself. For example, you go to dinner, let the waiter order for you, or let someone else order for you. Oh yeah, I do that. Yeah, I say, give me 3 choices. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. That's you picking from 3 choices. What I'm talking about is you say, you know what? Other than the fact that I don't eat pork, you can pick anything on the menu. That's what I'm talking about. And the same fears, anxieties, and worries and concerns that come up there is exactly the same thing that happens when you go to work. Your project manager comes up to you and says, hey, I got this project. Should we use blue or red? And you're like, it's on you. I trust you guys to make that decision.
Yeah.
Same exact issue. The same thing's going on in your brain. So you can train your brain to what it feels like to give up control, and then you can practice in these small ways.
So when you took over as the commander of the submarine, was it clear to everybody that you had, while you had trained for a year on another submarine, you really didn't have a clue what was going on? Well, that's an over-exaggeration, but
that's a little harsh.
I'm sorry about that.
And sometimes I overplay it a little bit. It would be like as if you learned how to fly in one airplane, then you went to a different airplane with a totally different cockpit layout. I mean, the physics of flying the plane and driving the submarine, that was all the same. The underlying principles was the same, and that helped me in good stead. But the specific equipment, like which button do we push, was different. And so this, of course they knew, because they all knew. So it was kind of funny because you kind of get in a situation where, hey, I show up as the commander. I talked about know all, tell all leadership. And right, so I was operating up here. I'm a management consultant, so I can make 2x2s out the wazoo. Okay, so I was like, here we are, know all, tell all, right? I was operating up here, know all, tell all. That's the normal, isn't that the way leaders are supposed to be? And then I go to the Santa Fe where I don't know the ship. What happened? I went down here, know not, but still tell all. Why? Because that's what that's what you do.
Right.
And then when I said, you know what, I'm not going to give you guys any orders. You guys tell me. I became a no, not, tell not leader, which again is not a good long-term plan. But eventually I ended up over here, which is in what I call know all, but tell not. I mean, the idea is not to not know your job. The idea is to know your job, but resist whenever possible giving your people the simple answers. The answers to questions.
Right.
Let them deal with it. Like, it's the same thing with your kids. Like, if you keep telling them, like, when they're 2, you gotta bound them more than when they're 15. But ideally, by the time they're 18,
Right.
they go off to wherever they do in the world. They gotta be they gotta be self-controlling individuals. So the idea is, we slowly back out. We stop telling our people what to do, and they become leaders. So the idea is leaders.
So with some of the companies that you've worked with in helping them be more this intent-based leadership, what are some of the things that they're seeing as a result of making this switch?
Yeah. So what happens is people start feeling better about coming to work because they have decision making. So retention goes up, attrition goes down. If you do some kind of a survey, employee survey, those numbers go up. But the other thing, so then what happens is your customer satisfaction scores go up. So we say the customer is not number 1. I hate to tell you, customers, you're all number 2. My team is number 1, right? So if you're the general manager, you're the store manager of McDonald's, your customer's not number 1. Your job is to take care of your team so the team can take care of the customer. If you go back, they go back to the store and you're yelling at your people, oh, you didn't serve those fries right. Now get back out there and sell some hamburgers. Like, well, how do you think they're going to treat people? You got to take care of your people, and your people will take care of the customer. So what happens is then, same thing in a hotel, right? We treat the front desk right. We treat the room service people right. We treat the wait staff properly, and then they take care of you. So customer survey scores go up, market share goes up, profits go up. So we've seen in at least one organization, basically this direct line. Here's a really cool story. Sports team, University of Kentucky baseball. The batting coach calls me. He sends me an email one day and he says, we went from the worst to the first in the league because of your silly story on a nuclear submarine. I'm like, okay, Coach. So his name is Brian Green. So I call him up. I say, hey, Coach Green, tell me what's going on here. He says, yeah, look, here's what happened. I was the batting coach. We were at the bottom of the league. Kids would come up to bat, and I would say, okay, do this, do that. Handle this pitcher this way. Choke up. Stand closer to the plate. I stopped all that, and I just said, when you get up to bat, your job is to tell me your plan. The kids had to think and figure out their plan. They had articulated. Because, by the way, after the first pitch, right, the kids got to figure it out anyway. Next year, top of the league, signed a kid to the majors for over $1 million, the first time they'd done it there.
Wow.
And then the batting coach got hired, and he's now head coach at another university. Why? Because he stopped telling the kids what to do. The kids had to own the solutions to their own problems. So we engaged thinking. The problem is too much of today's work is about doing, not thinking, right? Yeah. What makes us human beings, what makes us excited about life is not the doing of it. It's the thinking and the creative and problem solving and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, there's doing that's fun, but...
Yeah, it's interesting.
So going to work, you got to figure out ways to get your people to think. That's wrong. Like, it's not like I'm getting you to think. It's just like I create the space where you have the ability to think.
Yeah, I love that. People do things like, they put on ping pong tables or whatever. When
that has nothing to do with anyone's satisfaction.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, let's see. So
the satisfaction at work comes from knowing that your job matters, from feeling confident in your ability to do it, being connected to some kind of a team, and having control. In other words, being able to say, you know what? If I see something that needs happening, I can do it. I don't need to put in a form and wait 3 weeks for permission to go do something, and I see it needs to happen.
So you turned your ship around as far as the ranking went in a year, but how long did it take people to kind of get that that message down that they should speak up, that they should tell you their intent versus wait to be told what to do?
For some guys, it took us about 5 minutes because I just went back. We had this thing where I had the fifth shift into fifth gear thing, and we had a meeting. And then like 5 minutes later, a couple guys were like, Captain, I intend to do this. I intend to, get out of my way, and I'm like, awesome. And then some people took a little bit longer. And we had some people who, I kind of believe that eventually they would have got there, but they just would have been like the sun would have been a black hole before that happened. And we found other jobs for them in the Navy.
Gotcha.
So the idea is, let people be successful, and sometimes it means, changing the environment around them, and sometimes it means putting them in a different environment. And there was no ill will. It was just they didn't want to be in our environment, and we didn't want them either.
Yeah. So, what kind of a relationship did you feel like you had with the crew, with the officers and with the enlisted personnel?
Total. Okay, it was total trust. There were a couple of things. One is they knew I was thinking about them and I was going to take care of them. And we can talk about what it means to, quote, take care of people, because there's a lot of pablum out there about this. Take care of your people. But for me, it was making sure that they had maximum opportunity to get promoted, that nothing was going to limit their ability to rise in the Navy to more higher senior qualifications or more money other than them. And that meant in some cases breaking some Navy rules, because sometimes the Navy would have a rule that said, in order to reach this level, you need to demonstrate all this knowledge and have 6 years in the Navy. And I was like, well, forget the 6 years, right? If you demonstrate the knowledge, I don't care, you got 6 months. I'm going to give you that. So they felt like, the sky, they could do anything. I can't remember. So I talked about take care of your people, but the other thing, trust. Yeah, so this is real important. And there are I'm telling you that some of your people will vehemently disagree with me on this, because I get hate mail on this one. Okay, but I've seen the difference that it makes. Trust is trust. Trust does not mean trust plus competence put together, which is the way most people interpret it. So they say things like, I trust you to get me to the airport. Okay, that means I trust A, that you're trying to get me to the airport, and B, that you know how to read a map. And what we would say is, great. The fact that you're trying to get me to the airport, that's the trust part. The reading of the map has nothing to do with trust. Nothing. It has to do with reading a map. and the reason you want to break these two things apart is because if we get to the intersection and you're like, go left, and I'm like, no, go right, and we have this big argument about whether we should go left or right, it's an argument about reading the map, which is unemotional, not an argument about whether you trust me or not. And unfortunately, when you commingle those two, then it becomes, we can't argue about whether it's the right thing to turn right or left without bringing in all the emotion of trust. Oh, don't you trust me? It's like, well, yeah, I trust you, but it's a mess. So on the submarine, we could have knockdown. People couldn't understand it. We got on our ship, we'd be having fight. We'd be throwing, balled up paper at each other. No, we should turn left. We should turn right. We should do this. We should do that. We should go up, down, whatever. And then we'd make a decision, and then we'd be like, big hug, and we go do it. And there'd be like zero animosity, and people couldn't understand how that happens. It's because we all trust each other. In other words, when you say we should go left, when I said we should go right, I believe that you're trying to get us to the same place, and you believe that I'm trying to get us to the same place. It's just an issue of reading the map. So trust is not trust plus competence. Trust just means, do you and I, are we trying to go in the same direction? Do we have the same end state in mind?
Very cool. So I have a question that I'm going to ask, and
Sounds ominous.
yes, and I'm debating it in my own brain as I'm forming the words. Having been in the Navy, I know there's a very strict way that officers enlisted are separate, and the business and personal doesn't get mixed. But living on a submarine, I imagine sometimes that business and that personal gets mixed. So, what what is that like, and is that the same or different when you had this intent-based kind of leadership?
Yeah, I think it's important to. I'm not a big touchy feely guy. Like people will tell you. I was a physics major, a nuclear engineer. My master's degree is in engineering science. You know, how exciting is that? And for me, it was all about not ones and zeros. Like the submarine would sink or float based on ones and zeros. The pipe is thick enough or it's not thick enough. The torpedo explodes nearby or it doesn't explode nearby. And it kind of had this very quantified, scientific, analytical approach to the world. And I didn't. We were so busy all the time. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of time to say, oh, how's your dog doing today, and all that kind of stuff. But you need to actually care about your people, and whether that comes out by saying, how was your weekend? I hope you had a great weekend. Or, you were talking about taking your wife out to her birthday, and I hope that went okay. To, I know you're trying to take finish your degree, and we're going to try and set it up so that you have time to take some online courses so you can get your degree complete. Whatever it is, you got to truly, just give it about your people. And you can't fake it, right? You just can't fake it. I had a guy work for me temporarily, or a guy worked for me. So we were out in Pearl Harbor, right? And if you wanted to get good jobs for your people, you needed to talk to the people who coordinated jobs, which was back on the East Coast. So this guy would come. He was involved in getting jobs for the sailors, the career counselor, and so in Hawaii to talk to the East Coast, he would have to come in at 3 a.m. It didn't matter. He didn't have to say, how was your weekend? Everyone knew he was there at 3 a.m. making phone calls, trying to make sure that the guys leaving the ship were getting the best jobs possible. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very good. Thank you. I'm glad I asked the question. All right. So if you were giving advice to a leader that's listening to this conversation and saying, the stuff I'm doing now isn't working so great, maybe I need to listen to David and do what he's talking about. What are some of the things that you want to give them a little bit of advice on, or caution on, or encouragement on?
Well, leadership is super hard. It's super hard because you get all the blame and none of the credit. And it's super hard because it goes against your instincts. The idea that, you're going to want to be in control, you're going to want to give orders, and you got to resist that every single day. And so, don't beat yourself up. I was, even at the end of the tour, my guys would still be coming up to me and say, hey, Captain, you just told us what to do. You just told us what to do. And it's not like, you're going to be perfect over here. But if you have the idea, I'm going to move in this direction, you share that with your team and you give them permission to come back to you and say, hey, guys, like I call it like self-yellow carding, basically. It's like, hey, guys, I want to be this way. If I'm not acting this way, I want you guys to yellow. I actually gave these guys yellow card me. And they'll be amazingly forgiving. And so for leaders, I think, one, it's hard. Don't beat yourself up. It probably will feel different than you think because so much of our Western culture is about the leader as hero as leader, which was great historically, but it's not what's going to cause a team of intelligent people to just really just come to work excited and kicking butt. So that's like one of them. And then give your team permission to give you feedback. Say, hey guys, you guys have permission. I would try and be pretty specific about what it is. Like for me, listening. Say, if you don't feel like I was listening to you, I want you to give me the yellow card. All right? Just give me the yellow card. And I'll tell you, whenever I wasn't listening, it was always because I was stressed or worried about something else. So the last thing I want to see was that GD yellow card. But then they say, hey, boss, you told me I could. I said, yeah, I did. Okay, let me try again. I'm sorry. Let me try again. And then, or I would say, you know what? I just can't listen right now. I got this other thing going on. I just cannot listen to you right now. Can you come back in an hour or a day or whatever it happens to be? And again, if you act like that, they're amazingly forgiving. It's when you say, oh yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, I'm listening. And you're not. No, they won't put up with that crap. So it's hard. Start small, act your way to new thinking, try one small thing. And when your people come out to you, next time your team comes to you, says, hey, boss, what should we do here? Just say, hey, what do you think we should do?
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, in this journey that you've been on, and that you're still helping other people with their journeys, what has been maybe the most pleasant surprise you had on this quest?
Well,
or some of the most pleasant
yeah,
surprises.
I mean, it's amazing. It's crazy. I mean, I'm just like a guy who grew up in Massachusetts and had the desire to be a submarine captain. And, I go all over the world and talk to people. And I'm telling you, I don't care where you go. I've been to India, China, Central America. Everyone wants the same thing, right? Everyone wants a job that matters. Everyone wants a better life for their kids. I was in China and I was talking to some CEOs and they were telling me, your thing won't work over here. Chinese people just want to be told what to do. And then I had a talk that night with the university and I was like, you guys just want to be told what to do? Tell me about, what do you think of that? And then like the whole room erupted in conversation and just for like, I did like, that was my first slide. I didn't know slides. There was this big raucous town hall meeting conversation about of course not. They're human beings just like anybody else. So I'm not saying that I think it's probably harder in certain cultures to move in this direction, but if you go to the innate humanness in all of us, it's the same. I called my wife and said, oh my God, I could be in the middle of Kansas here. It's the same. People want the same. They want the same. They want significance in their life. They want jobs. They want lives that matter. And a big part of that is our jobs. So we want a job that we can hold our head up, where we contribute our whole humanness, which means not just this part, but this part.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. Brilliant. Did you have any notion the impact that those decisions that you made back then would have, even in turning the ship around?
I had no idea. I mean, we did it. It was great. We had, the submarine did great. Everyone loved it. We got promoted. My guys got promoted. I got promoted. And then went on to the next job. So it was good. Done. Next job. And then it was 10 years later, and officer after officer was being selected. Finally, one of the officers says, Captain, I'm the 10th guy from our crew to be selected. I was like, what? And anyway, so some things came together there, and my wife was like, well, that's the story to tell. I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And then, I wrote the book, and my mom bought 5 copies. That was nice. And then I hated it for a long time. I worked on it over and over and over again because it was kind of this artificial, I call it out here, like it was like, oh, well, you should be more like this, and I'm a great. And then finally I said, that's all crap. And I just started writing about what was going on in my head, my fears, my anxieties, how screwed up I was. And, then it kind of came together and I felt okay about it. And that's, it's resonated with people.
Very good, very good. Well, David, thank you so much for taking the time with our audience here and sharing your thoughts. And we'll share in the show notes all the information about how folks can get a hold of you and the book. And you said some really brilliant things here today, and I hope folks will listen to them. And I think maybe one of the things that I appreciated the most was the fact that you were willing to say, okay, throw the yellow card, and how forgiving people are when you're willing to be that genuine person with them. So, very good. All right. Well, thanks again, David. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. And to all the listeners out there, you're doing good.
And don't be so hard on yourself, right?
Don't be so hard on yourself.
Good. Thanks, David.
Okay, cheers.
This podcast was brought to you by Bigger Brains, online training that won't bore you to tears. Expand the minds of your workforce at getbiggerbrains.com. Thanks for tuning in to Permission to Speak. If you want to increase collaboration and innovation in your organization, check out more resources available at speakingpractically.com or give me a call, Kelly Vandever, at 770-597-1108.